Hey, my name's Billy, and I'm going to show you how to make some ice fishing jigs. Take a look. Alright, what do we got? We got the soldering iron. Click that thing on. Got our liquid flux. Got our flux brush. Got some ice fishing jigs right in there. Bunch of hooks that I took some blades off of. We got some small actual jig hooks right here. Get one unhooked. Right here. Got a small one right there. Got some bigger ones of those right there, and we got our traditional and those are Aberdeen jig hooks. This is just a straight Aberdeen hook. Right there, that's just a straight Aberdeen hook. We're going to use that one right there. Got a lid to a small box that I used to solder my jigs on. We got our solder, which rosin core solder, that's what you're going to need. And we're going to take our ice blade. That's what they call them, is ice blades. We're going to lay it right there. And we need to put some water on our sponge. That's what we're going to use to clean the flux and whatnot off of our... because rosin core solder has its own flux. It's called rosin. We're going to use a wet sponge. Put some right on there. Let it soak it up. Put some more on. There we go. Alright, you can see the sponge is nice and wet. There's some water coming out of it that it didn't soak up. That's alright. Our main objective here is just to get the sponge wet enough to where you can see the smoke coming off the steam rather, coming off the sponge. If I can set this upright. Alright, we gotta and where's our forceps at? Right here. Forceps, that's another thing you'll need. You can use alligator clips. I found forceps work better because you have more weight behind the holding the hook down and holding the hook in place. So what we're going to do here is get this set up just right. Put the hook in the forceps, like that. You don't need to put the hook too far in the forceps, or else you'll kind of muddle things up a bit. Alright, so we got our soldering iron. We're going to set our hook on our blade, like yay. Just like that. We're going to take our flux, get our brush in it, off the excess, take off the excess of that, and then we're going to take and just barely dab it. To where there's enough. And that flux helps the solder travel up and onto the blade, so you're not using too much solder and adding unneeded weight. And so here we go. And you can see some smoke coming off. That's the flux burning off. As soon as it stops hissing, you're going to do this, and you'll hear some hissing as you're doing it. Not to worry. There we got some a nice ice jig right there. We'll wait till it goes and blowing on it. As soon as you see it start to, you see it turn kind of white there. Then we're going to take and to rapid cool it to where you can touch it. You can put it right there. If you do this right away, after it turns white, you'll hear a small hiss, and that's just the water, the colder water, cooling the ice blade. And it'll still be fairly warm to the touch, sometimes a little hot. But right there, we got our basic teardrop jig. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a what I like to call a flipping jig, a flipping ice jig, and we use a beveled blade like this. If I can get it to sit right. The jig blade is bent and slightly concave, you can see right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take another one of our Aberdeen hooks, just our regular Aberdeen hook, and we're going to need to bend it right there in the middle so that when we put it on here, it will sit right. But of course we'll be sitting it upright like that, sitting the jig hook up like that. So what we'll do is most of these blades will have a little bevel in it. We'll have little bevels in it so to hold the hook. Like this one right there. You can kind of see it. Right there. See it? Well, these ones, the bevel isn't really defined. You can see it on the back side slightly. Well, it's not. It's defined on the back side, but on the underside, it's not really defined enough to hold the hook. So what I do is I take a diamond file, and right up towards the top, it is very narrow. So what I do is I take it, and I set it like that, and I just drag it forward, and it makes a nice little bevel in there. Maybe you'll just see it better on this other side. And I do that to the narrow side too. You got to be careful to put it right in the middle so that your jig hook isn't sitting too far to one side and make your jig flip a certain crazy way. And I like to make these with the bevel end at the bottom so that you can do something similar to this. So that you can do something similar to this with your jig. So you can do something similar to this with your jig. So what we're going to do is, next we're going to bend our jig hook, our Aberdeen jig hook. We're going to bend it right about in the middle. So, and you got to make sure that these hooks that you go to bend are not forged. If they're forged, like those bigger actual Aberdeen jig hooks, like the smaller one I can bend, but this one, the bigger one, the one that was in the middle, is forged and you cannot bend it. It will break. And like you see right here, right there is part of one. That's that's just above the bend. You don't want to do that, or else that'll happen. Which isn't really an issue because you can just make a straight jig out of it anyways. You just got to be careful so as the solder doesn't suck up the jig eye. Alright, so I'm doing this all on my cell phone, so just bear with me. But we take this and we're going to bend it ever so slightly. Alright, making sure it's in between the grooves. And there we have a nice bend in it. That will allow the solder to go right with it. I believe that might be too much of a bend, but we'll see real quick here. And I'm sorry I'm doing this on my cell phone. It's easier for me right now because I have my living room set up differently than I did when I was first making ice fishing jigs. Alright, so that was a little too much of the bend, so all you'll need to do is grab the hook right where the bend is and flatten it out a bit. See? There we have a lot less severe of a turn. I'm going to put it on the blade, see how it fits. Excellent. That fits perfectly. Fits perfectly. Alright, so we're going to put this down. And especially when you need the solder to go up the blade, is when you need flux. Because while the solder will do that naturally, as it's going on a conductive surface, for like the two metals bond really well together, it will do that naturally, but also you don't want to add so much solder that it's just out of shape and you lose usability with your hook. So we got the hook. There we go. And a lot of people don't use solder, or not solder, but flux. I find it just helps a lot to, if I want a lighter jig or something, it helps the solder move faster onto the ice blade without adding too much solder, adding too much weight. I'm going to move it up forward. Hope the music's not too loud, but we'll see here. And I'm going to flip this around so I can show you that we can cool the jig right afterwards. Alright, we got our flux. Dip it back in there a bit. Some white in here. This will go a lot faster if I was a bit more prepared, but you know how that goes. So we're going to very lightly need to add some flux to that. Alright, we got some flux on there. There we go. See the solder traveling up the jig. And if your solder doesn't cover your hook, you can kind of drag it up with your iron. There we go. I'll let it cool for a second. There it starts to cool down. There we go. Nice little flipper jig. And to get that char off, which may happen on a dirty board like mine, as you can see, there's a lot of burn marks. That's just because, I mean, it's not going to... your essential wood burning kit you can solder with, you know. Anyways, that char there, that's just burnt flux mixed with wood there. You could take a file, or a lot of people use acetone, you know, your nail polish remover. As soon as your jig cools down enough, you drop your jigs in there and it'll dissolve all that shit off there. So... anyways, I hope this has been instructive enough, but if you have any questions, hit me up, post some comments, send me a private message. Hope this has been good for you. Hope the music hasn't been too loud. Again, any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Later, guys.